There is a profound difference between the mind of a warrior and the mind of a victim. The mind of a victim believes that life happens to it, that the world is against it, and that circumstances define its happiness, peace, and success. The mind of a warrior, however, understands a deeper truth. Life does not owe us comfort, clarity, or ease, but it does offer opportunities for growth, resilience, and mastery. To train your mind like a warrior is to rise above the impulses of fear, doubt, and self-pity. It is to cultivate a mental framework that transforms obstacles into challenges, weaknesses into lessons, and pain into fuel for strength. The first way to train your mind like a warrior is to take full responsibility for your reality. A victim mindset constantly looks outward for blame. The world is unfair, people wronged me, circumstances prevented me from succeeding. A warrior, however, looks inward first. They do not deny the existence of external challenges, but they understand that how they respond to those challenges is entirely within their control. Every thought, every decision, and every reaction becomes a tool of empowerment rather than a channel of complaint. This shift begins with honesty, acknowledging your fears, mistakes, and limitations without judgment, and then asking yourself, what can I do in this moment to rise above? Responsibility is not a burden, it is freedom. By owning your life completely, you reclaim the energy wasted on blame and redirect it into growth and action. To truly embody a warrior mindset, you must also train your mind to observe, not react. Victims are often prisoners of their emotions, allowing fear, anger, and despair to dictate behavior. Warriors understand that the mind is like a river. It can be turbulent, but it can also flow smoothly when guided with awareness. The practice of observation, watching your thoughts, feelings, and impulses without immediately acting on them, is the foundation of mental mastery. When insulted, when challenged, when faced with betrayal, a warrior does not lunge impulsively. They pause, they breathe, they assess the situation, and respond from a place of strategy, not reactivity. This kind of mental discipline transforms situations that would cripple a victim into opportunities for growth and influence. Another essential practice for warrior-minded thinking is embracing discomfort and seeking challenge deliberately. Victims avoid difficulty. They cling to comfort, certainty, and predictability, hoping life will bend to their desires. Warriors, however, move into discomfort with intention. They understand that true strength, resilience, and clarity are forged under pressure. When faced with physical, emotional, or mental challenges, they see them as a training ground for courage and mastery. This is not recklessness, but deliberate exposure to situations that stretch the mind and body beyond habitual limits. By stepping into discomfort, a warrior trains their mind to remain calm under pressure, adapt quickly, and maintain clarity even when the stakes are high. A warrior's mind is also characterized by unwavering focus and relentless discipline. Victims allow distractions, doubts, and fleeting emotions to control their attention. They drift from one worry to another, allowing chaos to dictate priorities. Warriors, however, understand that control over the mind equals control over destiny. They train themselves to focus on what matters most, consistently aligning actions with purpose. This requires daily mental conditioning, choosing thoughts deliberately, prioritizing energy, and eliminating mental noise. Discipline is not punishment. It is the path to mastery. Every choice to redirect wandering thoughts, to persist despite difficulty, and to maintain clarity builds a mental resilience that transforms a fragile mind into an unshakable fortress. Finally, the mind of a warrior cultivates gratitude and perspective as tools of power, not consolation. Victims often feel powerless because they fixate on what they lack, on injustices endured, and on imagined failures. Warriors, however, maintain perspective. Life is filled with loss and gain, setbacks and victories, challenges and opportunities. Gratitude does not mean naivety. It means acknowledging what is working, what is possible, and what you can influence. Perspective allows the warrior to rise above petty frustrations, social manipulations, and emotional turbulence. By seeing life in a broader context, the mind is fortified, immune to manipulation, and guided by principles rather than reactionary impulses. Gratitude and perspective become the invisible armor that protects against despair, distraction, and weakness. Training your mind like a warrior also involves repetition and reinforcement. Habits shape the neural architecture of your brain. Every time you choose responsibility over blame, observation over reaction, discomfort over avoidance, discipline over distraction, and perspective over self-pity, you are rewiring your mind. The warrior does not wait for inspiration, they create it through consistent practice. Meditation, reflection, journaling, and intentional challenges are all tools to forge mental toughness. Each day, the mind is either strengthened or weakened, and the warrior makes conscious choices that align with growth, resilience, and clarity. Moreover, the mind of a warrior learns to turn setbacks into strategy. Victims interpret obstacles as punishment. Warriors interpret obstacles as feedback. When a plan fails, a relationship falters, or an opportunity is lost, the warrior does not despair. They analyze, adapt, and apply lessons with precision. Every failure becomes a teacher, every mistake a stepping stone, every difficulty a chance to cultivate patience and insight. This mental reframing transforms challenges from drains on energy into sources of empowerment. Over time, the warrior learns to anticipate, navigate, and master life with precision, while the victim remains trapped in cycles of resentment and regret. Equally important is cultivating emotional intelligence as a weapon of strength. Victims are enslaved by their emotions, they react, lash out, or retreat based on immediate feelings. Warriors, however, understand emotions but do not serve them blindly. They recognize triggers, understand patterns, and choose responses strategically. This mastery over emotional impulses ensures that every decision strengthens rather than diminishes their power. Emotional intelligence is not manipulation, it is the art of self-command and situational awareness. It allows the warrior to act decisively, maintain relationships with clarity, and navigate conflict with integrity and composure. A warrior also embraces silence and reflection as tools for mental fortification. The victim constantly seeks validation, distraction, and noise to soothe insecurity. The warrior, however, cultivates inner stillness. Silence is not empty, it is a training ground. In moments of reflection, they observe thought patterns, uncover hidden fears, clarify intentions, and plan strategic actions. This internal dialogue is deliberate and disciplined. Unlike the chaotic rumination of a victim, by mastering silence, the warrior ensures mental clarity, strengthens intuition, and aligns every decision with purpose and principle. Finally, a warrior understands that control over the mind is the ultimate freedom. The mind shapes reality. When you govern your thoughts, emotions, and attention with precision, you become impervious to manipulation, fear, and despair. You act from strength rather than reaction, from strategy rather than impulse. You do not wait for circumstances to dictate your life, you direct them through the power of conscious choice. The mind of a warrior is not just resilient, it is creative, adaptive, disciplined, and unshakable. It sees opportunity where a victim sees threat, and it acts with courage where a victim hesitates in fear. Training your mind like a warrior is not a single action, it is a lifelong commitment. It requires patience, discipline, and unwavering focus. Each day presents choices to act as a victim or a warrior, to surrender to fear or rise to courage, to allow chaos to control you or master your internal state. By embracing responsibility, observation, discomfort, discipline, perspective, and mental fortitude, you cultivate a mind that no circumstance can break, no setback can destroy, and no betrayal can derail. The warrior's mind is freedom incarnate, a fortress of clarity, strength, and wisdom in a world designed to test every fiber of your being. Fear is the invisible chain that binds so many minds in a cycle of limitation. It is subtle, often disguised as caution, concern, or hesitation. Victims allow fear to dictate every choice. They wait for certainty, avoid challenges, and surrender their power to the circumstances around them. The warrior, however, understands that fear is not the enemy. In fact, fear is a messenger, a teacher, a signal that growth is on the horizon. To train your mind like a warrior is to meet fear with awareness, courage, and strategy. It is to transform uncertainty from a paralyzing force into a motivating one. The first step in this transformation is recognizing the illusions of fear. Victims often believe fear represents reality, that it is a prophecy of failure or disaster. The warrior knows that fear is rarely a true representation of the external world. It is a reflection of internal doubts, insecurities, and unresolved patterns. When fear arises, a warrior pauses, observes it, and asks, "What is this really about?" By dissecting the roots of fear, the mind separates illusion from reality. This mental clarity allows the warrior to act decisively without being manipulated by imagined threats or worst-case scenarios. Another critical practice is embracing uncertainty as a necessary terrain for growth. Victims crave predictability, security, and control. They resist change and cling to comfort, believing that stability equates to safety. Warriors, however, understand that life is inherently uncertain and that true power arises not from controlling circumstances, but from mastering one's responses to them. Uncertainty is not a barrier, it is the battlefield on which the warrior hones resilience, adaptability, and creativity. By welcoming uncertainty rather than fearing it, the mind becomes flexible, strategic, and capable of navigating challenges with confidence. A warrior's mind also cultivates courage through deliberate exposure to discomfort. Facing fear is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. Small intentional challenges, whether physical, emotional, or intellectual, train the mind to remain composed when larger fears arise. This could be public speaking, despite anxiety, setting boundaries in relationships, or pursuing goals despite uncertainty. Each confrontation with fear builds a neural pattern of resilience. Over time, what once seemed terrifying becomes manageable, and the warrior's mind grows stronger, bolder, and more confident. Courage is developed through action, not wishful thinking, and every act of deliberate exposure reinforces the mind's capacity to endure and thrive. Equally important is the practice of mental reframing. Victims interpret obstacles and setbacks as proof of inadequacy or misfortune. Warriors, however, view the same experiences as lessons, opportunities, and feedback. When fear arises, they ask, "What can I learn? How can this challenge sharpen me?" By reframing circumstances, the mind shifts from a victim perspective of helplessness to a warrior perspective of empowerment. Every setback becomes a step forward, every failure a guide, and every fear a tool for refinement. Reframing transforms perception, and perception shapes reality. A mind trained in this way does not succumb to despair, it converts difficulty into mastery. Discipline over thought patterns is another cornerstone of warrior training. Victims allow worry, self-doubt, and negative narratives to dominate the mind. Warriors intentionally cultivate mental clarity through focus, meditation, and reflection. They practice observing intrusive thoughts without attachment, choosing which to entertain and which to dismiss. This mental discipline prevents fear from dictating behavior and ensures that decisions are made from a place of strength and purpose. By consistently redirecting the mind toward constructive thought patterns, the warrior develops a psychological fortress impervious to manipulation, panic, or despair. A warrior also practices strategic detachment from outcomes. Victims tie their self-worth and emotional stability to results. Success or failure, approval or rejection, becomes a source of constant anxiety. Warriors, in contrast, focus on effort, intention, and skillful action, while remaining unattached to specific outcomes. This does not mean indifference or passivity. It means maintaining equilibrium, regardless of external circumstances. When fear arises, detachment allows the mind to act without panic, to innovate without being constrained by imagined limitations, and to persevere without being swayed by external judgment. Visualization and mental rehearsal are powerful tools in the warrior's training. Fear is often amplified by imagined scenarios of failure or humiliation. A warrior anticipates challenges not with dread, but with preparation. By vividly imagining obstacles, potential reactions, and successful outcomes, the mind creates a blueprint for resilience. This rehearsal strengthens neural pathways associated with confidence, calmness, and adaptability. When real challenges arise, the warrior does not panic. They navigate the situation with foresight, strategy, and poise. Fear, once a tyrant, becomes a teacher guiding skillful preparation. Warriors also cultivate self-trust as a weapon against fear. Victims doubt themselves, constantly seeking validation or reassurance from others. The warrior, however, relies on inner judgment and experience. They understand that they have endured challenges before, adapted, and prevailed. This self-trust forms the bedrock of courage. It allows the mind to move forward even when the path is unclear. By consistently taking responsibility, observing fear, and acting with discipline, the warrior reinforces this inner authority, making fear an ally rather than a master. Another essential dimension of training the mind like a warrior is embracing solitude as a tool for reflection and mental fortitude. Fear thrives in distraction and dependency. When the mind is quiet, when the warrior spends time alone with thoughts, emotions, and intentions, fear loses its power. Solitude allows observation without reaction, planning without panic, and preparation without interference. It strengthens internal resources so that external pressures no longer dominate the mind. Through solitude, the warrior cultivates clarity, strategy, and the ability to remain unshaken in the face of uncertainty. Finally, warriors transform adversity into purpose. Fear, obstacles, and uncertainty are inevitable parts of life. The victim is defined by avoidance and complaint, while the warrior is defined by proactive transformation. Every fear faced, every challenge endured, and every moment of uncertainty navigated becomes fuel for growth. By integrating these experiences into a broader purpose, personal mastery, service, or achievement, the mind becomes resilient, visionary, and disciplined. Fear ceases to dominate. It becomes a companion guiding awareness, effort, and strategic action. In conclusion, overcoming fear and uncertainty is not a matter of eliminating them. It is a matter of training the mind to meet them with awareness, courage, and deliberate action. The warrior does not wait for perfect conditions, does not rely on external validation, and does not allow imagined threats to paralyze potential. Through responsibility, observation, deliberate exposure to discomfort, mental reframing, discipline, detachment, visualization, self-trust, solitude, and purposeful action, the mind is transformed from a victim into a warrior. This is the essence of mastery, the ability to act decisively, remain unshaken, and thrive in a world that constantly tests the limits of courage and resilience. One of the defining differences between a warrior and a victim is the ability to focus relentlessly. The victim's mind is scattered, overwhelmed, and distracted. Thoughts of doubt, fear, and what-ifs pull attention in every direction, leaving little space for deliberate action. The warrior, however, understands that mastery of the mind begins with mastery of attention. To train your mind like a warrior is to cultivate the ability to choose where your energy goes, to resist distractions, and to act with precision. Focus is not merely concentration on a task, it is a state of being, a way of life, and the foundation of all mastery. The first step in developing a warrior's focus is eliminating mental clutter. Victims allow endless streams of unnecessary thoughts, worries, and opinions to occupy their mind. Social media, gossip, past failures, and imagined fears take priority over meaningful action. The warrior intentionally declutters the mind by prioritizing what is essential. Meditation, journaling, and reflection become tools to identify what truly matters. By consistently clearing mental noise, the mind becomes a weapon rather than a playground for distraction. The warrior does not react to every impulse. They respond intentionally to what aligns with purpose and growth. Equally important is the practice of single-minded attention. Victims attempt to do everything at once, chasing multiple goals without focus, and often ending up exhausted and ineffective. Warriors understand the power of sustained, deliberate effort in one area at a time. When the mind is committed fully to a chosen task, it gains depth, clarity, and momentum. Each action becomes meaningful, and progress compounds. This single-minded attention is not rigidity, it is disciplined flexibility. The warrior adjusts strategies as needed but never sacrifices focus on what truly matters. Another critical skill is managing the flow of energy. The mind and body are intricately linked, and mental clarity cannot exist without balanced energy. Victims allow fatigue, distraction, and emotional turbulence to dictate performance. Warriors, however, regulate their energy intentionally. They rest when needed, eat and move mindfully, and use breathing techniques to maintain mental equilibrium. Energy management allows the mind to remain sharp under pressure, resist impulsive reactions, and make decisions that are aligned with strategy rather than emotion. The warrior also cultivates deep observation and situational awareness. Victims often operate on autopilot, reacting to events without insight. Warriors train the mind to see beyond the immediate, to notice patterns, and to anticipate outcomes. This heightened awareness is a form of mental reconnaissance. It allows the warrior to act with precision, to avoid unnecessary conflict, and to leverage opportunities that the distracted mind of a victim would miss. Observation is not passive, It is an active, disciplined engagement with reality that informs intelligent action. Discipline over focus also involves filtering input and choosing what to consume mentally. Victims allow every piece of information, every opinion, and every distraction to infiltrate their mind. Warriors are selective. They guard what they consume, understanding that thoughts are shaped by what we feed them. Inspirational readings, strategic knowledge, and constructive conversations become fuel, while gossip, negativity, and trivial noise are filtered out. By controlling input, the warrior shapes the quality of thought, emotion, and decision-making. A warrior's mind is also trained to resist reactive impulses. Victims often react emotionally to criticism, setbacks, and provocation, losing focus and energy in the process. Warriors, however, pause, assess, and respond strategically. This restraint is a form of power. By not reacting impulsively, the mind maintains clarity, energy is preserved, and decisions are made from a place of deliberate intent, rather than emotional chaos. The ability to respond, not react, transforms situations that could overwhelm a victim into opportunities for advantage and growth. Visualization and mental rehearsal are also essential tools in focus mastery. The warrior mentally practices tasks, challenges, and confrontations before they occur. They anticipate obstacles, plan strategies, and rehearse responses in a controlled mental environment. This preconditioning strengthens neural pathways associated with clarity, confidence, and decisive action. When real challenges arise, the mind is prepared, calm, and able to maintain focus under pressure. Victims, lacking this preparation, are often paralyzed by uncertainty and overwhelmed by circumstances. Consistency in daily mental training is the hallmark of the warrior. Focus is not a trait one possesses naturally. It is a skill developed through repeated, deliberate practice. Each day, the warrior commits to moments of mental discipline, meditating, reflecting, reading strategically, or practicing awareness exercises. These consistent actions compound over time, forging a mind capable of extraordinary clarity, precision, and resilience. While victims drift with the currents of distraction, the warrior steers steadily toward mastery. Another essential aspect is setting clear priorities and boundaries. Focus without direction is wasted energy. Victims often allow obligations, distractions, and others' expectations to dominate their attention. Warriors define what is essential and draw boundaries that protect their focus. This may mean saying no, reducing commitments, or withdrawing from negative influences. Boundaries are not selfishness. They are a deliberate act of preserving mental clarity and directing energy toward meaningful goals. The warrior's mind also integrates reflection as a tool for continuous improvement. Daily assessment of thoughts, decisions, and outcomes allows the warrior to refine focus, adjust strategies, and strengthen clarity. Reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Victims often repeat mistakes because they fail to observe patterns or learn from experience. Warriors convert every action into a lesson, ensuring the mind becomes sharper, more disciplined, and increasingly resilient over time. Finally, a warrior understands that focus is inseparable from purpose. Mental clarity is not an end in itself. It is a tool for achieving meaningful goals and navigating life with mastery. When purpose is clear, attention naturally aligns, distractions lose power, and every action becomes deliberate. The mind of a warrior is not scattered, reactive, or chaotic. It is a directed force, a laser of consciousness that moves through life with precision, resilience, and unwavering commitment. In conclusion, training your mind like a warrior requires discipline, awareness, energy management, and strategic focus. It is the cultivation of a mind that sees clearly, acts decisively, and remains resilient under pressure. By eliminating mental clutter, practicing single-minded attention, managing energy, observing deliberately, filtering input, resisting reactionary impulses, rehearsing strategically, maintaining consistency, setting boundaries, and aligning focus with purpose, the warrior transforms a scattered reactive mind into a powerful, disciplined, and unshakable force. This mastery of focus is the bridge between intention and action, between potential and achievement, and between a life of victimhood and a life of warrior-level mastery. Life is a battlefield, not because the world is cruel, but because circumstances are unpredictable, challenges are inevitable, and growth is not served on a silver platter. Victims see adversity as punishment, as proof that life is unfair, or as evidence of personal inadequacy. Warriors, however, see adversity as training, a relentless teacher shaping strength, resilience, and mastery. To train your mind like a warrior is to cultivate mental toughness so that every setback, every hardship, and every challenge becomes a stepping stone toward growth rather than a trap of despair. The first element of resilience is accepting reality without resistance. Victims resist life, they wish circumstances were different, complain about unfairness, and invest energy in denial. The warrior, however, sees the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. Acceptance does not mean surrender or passivity. It means recognizing the current reality clearly, without distortion, and deciding how to act with strategy, courage, and clarity. By embracing reality, the mind is freed from wasted energy, allowing focus, creativity, and strength to flourish. The warrior's acceptance turns obstacles into opportunities and challenges into lessons. Another crucial practice is reframing adversity as growth. Victims interpret failure and misfortune as personal condemnation. Warriors, however, reframe these experiences as feedback, insight, and a guide toward improvement. When a project fails, a relationship ends, or an unexpected event disrupts plans, the warrior asks, "What is this teaching me? How can I use this experience to grow stronger?" By consistently reframing challenges, the mind shifts from a reactive, despairing state to a proactive, empowered state. Each hardship becomes a tool to strengthen patience, resilience, and perspective. Resilience also requires emotional regulation in the face of hardship. Victims often allow negative emotions to spiral uncontrollably. Anger, fear, resentment, or grief dominate their thinking. Warriors, however, recognize emotions without being enslaved by them. They pause, breathe, and observe feelings with mindfulness. This emotional discipline is essential because unregulated emotions cloud judgment, waste energy, and weaken mental resilience. By managing internal states consciously, the warrior maintains clarity, composure, and the ability to act strategically, even under extreme pressure. A warrior's mind is further strengthened by deliberate exposure to challenge. Life inevitably presents trials, but the warrior does not wait passively for adversity. They seek it strategically as training. This could be physical challenges, emotional confrontations, or intellectual problem solving. Each deliberate challenge reinforces the neural pathways of courage, patience, and persistence. Over time, the warrior's mind becomes habituated to discomfort and pressure. Situations that would overwhelm a victim are met with composure, creativity, and strength. By intentionally stretching the mind, resilience is not merely reactive, but proactive, a permanent trait rather than a temporary coping mechanism. Another critical practice is developing an inner locus of control. Victims attribute outcomes to luck, circumstance, or other people, leaving them feeling powerless and reactive. Warriors, however, understand that while they cannot control everything, they can always control their thoughts, actions, and reactions. This internal locus of control empowers decision-making, promotes accountability, and fosters self-confidence. The warrior sees setbacks not as final judgments, but as challenges to navigate with skill, patience, and persistence. Control over self, rather than over external events, becomes the source of unshakable strength. Mental toughness is also reinforced through reflection and learning from adversity. Victims often repeat patterns of failure because they fail to analyze experiences or extract lessons. Warriors reflect deeply on every challenge, identifying mistakes, uncovering opportunities, and integrating insights into future action. Reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Each encounter with difficulty is catalogued, understood, and leveraged. This continual learning strengthens the mind, ensuring that resilience grows not from mere endurance, but from conscious adaptation and improvement. A warrior also cultivates purpose-driven endurance. Hardships are inevitable, but those with clear purpose find meaning in suffering. Victims see pain as meaningless and overwhelming. Warriors see pain as a tool to reinforce discipline, sharpen focus, and deepen understanding. When the mind is aligned with purpose, endurance becomes a natural byproduct. Every trial endured with awareness and intention strengthens the warrior's sense of identity, direction, and confidence. Purpose transforms struggle into empowerment, suffering into insight, and adversity into mastery. Another essential aspect is building mental flexibility alongside toughness. Victims see challenges as threats, and rigidity often leads to failure or breakdown. Warriors, however, balance mental strength with adaptability. They analyze situations strategically, pivot when necessary, and remain committed to their goals while adjusting tactics. This combination of toughness and flexibility allows the warrior to endure extreme stress without collapse, to solve complex problems creatively, and to maintain mental clarity under chaos. The ability to bend without breaking is a hallmark of true warrior resilience. The warrior also practices detachment from immediate gratification and comfort. Victims often seek escape from discomfort, attempting to soothe pain with distractions or temporary relief. Warriors, however, understand that delayed gratification is a tool for mental fortification. By choosing discipline over ease, persistence over surrender, and long-term growth over short-term comfort, the mind is strengthened. Each act of restraint reinforces endurance, patience, and clarity. The warrior learns that true power lies not in avoiding difficulty, but in enduring it with purpose and strategy. Finally, the mind of a warrior is trained to trust in the process of life and the unfolding of events. Victims are impatient, reactive, and easily defeated by setbacks. Warriors cultivate patience and faith in the natural progression of effort and consequence. They understand that adversity is part of a larger journey, that each obstacle contributes to the development of strength, wisdom, and mastery. By trusting in this process, the mind remains calm, composed, and unwavering, even when circumstances are harsh. Resilience becomes not a reaction to external pressure, but a state of being, an enduring capacity to thrive, regardless of challenges. In conclusion, resilience is the bridge between a victim mindset and a warrior mindset. It is cultivated through acceptance, reframing, emotional regulation, deliberate challenge, internal control, reflection, purpose-driven endurance, mental flexibility, delayed gratification, and trust in life's process. By integrating these practices into daily life, the mind becomes a fortress of strength, clarity, and adaptability. Challenges no longer intimidate, adversity no longer drains. Instead, each difficulty serves as training for mastery, each hardship as a catalyst for growth, and each moment of pressure as an opportunity to exercise mental fortitude. A warrior's mind is not defined by the absence of struggle, but by the ability to navigate struggle with strategy, courage, and unwavering clarity. A warrior's mind is not born, it is forged through deliberate, consistent practice. Victims often wait for inspiration, luck, or favorable circumstances, believing that change is something that happens to them rather than something they create. Warriors, however, understand that mental mastery is a process of repeated, intentional action, a daily ritual of cultivating clarity, focus, resilience, and strength. To train your mind like a warrior, you must embrace discipline not as a burden, but as a sacred tool, shaping every thought, emotion, and action into a force for mastery. The first principle of warrior discipline is establishing daily rituals that reinforce mental strength. A victim mindset drifts through life without structure, reacting to external events and letting impulses dictate action. Warriors, however, create routines that cultivate focus, energy, and clarity. This may include meditation, journaling, physical training, or reflective reading. These rituals are not merely habits, they are intentional exercises in shaping the mind's resilience and awareness. By consistently engaging in these practices, the mind becomes sharper, more focused, and increasingly resistant to distraction, fear, and doubt. Consistency is the second pillar. Victims often start with motivation, but abandon practices when results are not immediate or challenges arise. Warriors understand that mastery is a marathon, not a sprint. Each day, no matter the external circumstances, the warrior recommits to their mental discipline. Small, deliberate actions, repeated over time, compound into profound growth. Consistency builds neural pathways, reinforces self-control, and transforms fragmented effort into a cohesive force of mental strength. Through unwavering commitment, the mind evolves from reactive chaos to disciplined clarity. Another key aspect of warrior training is prioritizing self-control over immediate gratification. Victims often allow fleeting desires, distractions, and impulses to dominate behavior. Warriors, however, understand that every choice matters and that delayed gratification is a tool of empowerment. Resisting the temptation to avoid discomfort, postpone effort, or indulge in distraction strengthens mental endurance. Each act of restraint reinforces the mind's capacity for focus, clarity, and strategic action. Discipline in small moments compounds into resilience and decisiveness in life's larger challenges. A warrior also cultivates strategic goal setting with deliberate focus. Victims drift without direction, overwhelmed by tasks, distractions, and conflicting desires. Warriors set clear priorities and align daily actions with long-term objectives. By breaking larger goals into manageable, actionable steps, the mind is trained to focus, persevere, and adapt without losing sight of purpose. Goals are not mere aspirations, they are instruments of mental conditioning, guiding energy, attention, and action in a deliberate, disciplined direction. Reflection and accountability are essential components of warrior discipline. Victims often repeat patterns of failure because they avoid introspection, blame external circumstances, or ignore lessons from experience. Warriors, however, engage in deliberate reflection, assessing successes, failures, and decisions without judgment. Accountability strengthens responsibility, clarifies priorities, and fosters self-awareness. Through reflection, the mind becomes more agile, adaptable, and capable of making informed decisions under pressure. Every mistake is an opportunity, every success a reinforcement of effective practice. Mental toughness is further reinforced through resisting procrastination and embracing decisive action. Victims delay, hesitate, and overthink, allowing fear, doubt, and uncertainty to erode their potential. Warriors act decisively, understanding that action generates clarity and momentum. Indecision fuels weakness. Action cultivates strength. Even imperfect action, guided by awareness and strategy, reinforces confidence and resilience. By consistently choosing to act rather than wait, the mind is conditioned to respond with clarity, courage, and strategic focus in every situation. Another key principle is curating your mental environment. Victims often allow distractions, negative influences, and unproductive habits to dominate their mind space. Warriors are intentional about what they expose themselves to: constructive conversations, empowering media, focused workspaces, and disciplined routines. By controlling the inputs that shape thought patterns, the warrior strengthens clarity, focus, and mental resilience. The environment becomes a tool rather than a threat, reinforcing the mind's capacity for strength, composure, and decisive action. Self-compassion, surprisingly, is also a critical aspect of warrior discipline. Victims either indulge in self-pity or harsh self-criticism, weakening their mental fortitude. Warriors maintain a balanced internal dialogue. They hold themselves accountable without undermining confidence. They recognize setbacks as temporary, mistakes as lessons, and challenges as opportunities. This balanced approach prevents burnout, sustains motivation, and reinforces a mindset of growth rather than victimhood. Self-compassion is not weakness, it is a strategic reinforcement of endurance, clarity, and resilience. Visualization and mental rehearsal complement disciplined action. Victims often fail to anticipate challenges or mentally prepare for obstacles. Warriors train the mind by imagining scenarios, planning responses, and rehearsing difficult decisions. Visualization strengthens neural patterns associated with clarity, focus, and effective action. When real challenges arise, the mind is prepared, calm, and capable of responding with precision. Through rehearsal, the warrior transforms uncertainty into opportunity, fear into strategy, and inaction into decisive mastery. Finally, a warrior integrates all these practices into a unified philosophy of daily mental training. Discipline, consistency, focus, reflection, action, self-compassion, and visualization are not isolated skills. They are interconnected elements of a cohesive strategy for mental mastery. Each day becomes a deliberate exercise in shaping thought, refining emotion, and strengthening resilience. The mind evolves from reactionary chaos into a fortress of clarity, strength, and unwavering purpose. The victim drifts aimlessly, the warrior moves with direction, strategy, and relentless focus. In conclusion, mastering the mind like a warrior requires daily, deliberate effort. Discipline is the foundation, consistency the reinforcement, focus the compass, and reflection the guide. By cultivating self-control, embracing decisive action, curating a supportive mental environment, practicing self-compassion, and rehearsing strategically, the warrior transforms their mind into an unshakable instrument of clarity, resilience, and mastery. Mental conditioning is not a one-time event, it is a lifelong commitment. Each day, each choice, each act of discipline reinforces the warrior within, ensuring that the mind is strong, strategic, and unstoppable in the face of life's challenges.